All right, welcome to this explainer. Today we are completely unpacking the highly classified and frankly unbelievably thrilling timeline of the Double Agent 007 mission. We'll be breaking down the raw intelligence and the actual field reports to figure out exactly how the entire world was pushed right to the brink of disaster and how one single, entirely unpredictable rogue element somehow pulled it back. So settle in, because the details inside this file are absolutely fascinating.
So, what does it actually take to survive a mission with literally less than a 1% chance of success? Well, to figure that out, we've got to rewind to an inciting incident off the coast of Iceland. 18 scientists were trapped inside a research facility during this brutal, heavily armed ambush. And our operative on the scene? He wasn't even MI6 yet. He was just a reckless aircrewman who basically accidentally stumbled onto our comms. MI6 explicitly told him to stand down. They told him the math gave him less than a 1% chance of coming out alive. And you know what? He went in anyway. Against all mathematical probability, and honestly against all common sense, he pulled the whole thing off. It just goes to show you that sometimes pure human willpower can completely shatter statistical projections.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 1, a reckless new recruit.
That stunning, albeit completely insubordinate success in Iceland definitely caught the eye of M. Even though this operative had a file stuffed with disciplinary issues and a pretty clear disdain for authority, M brought him into His Majesty's Secret Service anyway, dropping him straight into the grueling Malta training facility. And you can imagine the friction that's caused right out of the gate. On one hand, you've got your MI6 ideal, disciplined, strictly by the book, perfectly molded by training instructors like John Greenway, and embodied by top-tier recruits like Chris Monroe. And on the other hand, you have James Bond, immature, guided almost entirely by his gut feelings, and prone to just picking random fights with the SAS trainees. Pure dumb luck and charm just do not naturally fit into a highly structured intelligence apparatus, and it created a massive, massive culture clash. But you know, MI6 doesn't just evaluate recruits on their ability to throw a punch. The Malta training facility pushes these operatives through absolutely intense psychological and social engineering tests. One of the most fascinating trials Bond actually faced was this high-stakes baseline interrogation. Picture this. He had to sit opposite Foreign Secretary Bright's niece under intense biometrical scrutiny, and he had to learn how to lie under extreme duress without triggering a single heart rate or pupil dilation spike. The key takeaway here? In modern espionage, the enemy is never going to play fair, and mastering your own internal biological reactions is just as critical as mastering hand-to-hand combat. But why was M so desperate to recruit a wild card in the first place? Let's move into Section 2. Meet Quantum AI Thea. Meet Thea. Created by the esteemed AI pioneer Sir Nicholas Webb, Thea is the world's very first second-generation quantum computer. And this thing is a beast. It synthesizes millions of data streams instantaneously to make statistical deductions on national security. It's quite literally the reason MI6 was thwarting attacks before they even happened. In fact, Thea was the intelligence that accurately predicted Bond's terrible survival odds in Iceland. M realized something absolutely crucial. As cold, calculating AI logic starts to dominate spycraft, the service still desperately needs human intuition, that totally unpredictable human element to beat the machine's odds. It's the ultimate showdown between pure data and raw instinct. And the need for that unpredictability became super apparent when a massive crisis suddenly hit the agency. This brings us to Section 3, Tracking the Rogue Agent. So 009, real name Ree Beckett, was a former operative who completely went rogue, and he suddenly resurfaces claiming there's a massive conspiracy against the state. The rendezvous point was set for the Grand Carpathian Hotel in Slovakia, right smack in the middle of the heavily guarded World Chess Championship. This was a black tag operation, meaning absolute total discretion was required. But Bond being Bond, he failed to follow protocol and engaged way too early. The whole operation instantly devolved into chaos. 009 slipped right through their fingers, and it triggered a frantic, globe-trotting manhunt.
And the pursuit that followed was absolutely relentless. Let's look at the timeline. From his escape at 0 hours in Slovakia, MI6 tracked an abandoned cargo plane all the way to the Syrian village of Jayb al-Uman just 36 hours later. By hour 72, he was in the Turkish province of Şanlıurfa, and then taking a heavily obscured private jet charter to Egypt at 96 hours. Finally, at 120 hours, Thea's predictive algorithms managed to pin the transit payments down to a black market hub, a massive ship graveyard in Mauritania.
This ship graveyard out in the African desert was basically a kingdom ruled by a warlord known as the Pirate King, Bavma. It's an absolute cesspool of mercenaries and criminal organizations. Bond and Greenway infiltrated this literal lion's den, only to make a really grim discovery. On a boat gifted by Bavma, they found 009. He was already dead from a slow gut shot. But 009 had left them a message. They found him clutching diamonds in his mouth, alongside a photograph bearing a very crucial logo that linked straight back to a British corporation. He wasn't the culprit behind the conspiracy at all. He was the target. Which leads us directly to our massive twist in Section 4, the web industry's betrayal. Because the logo 009 died, protecting pointed right back to London, straight to Sir Nicholas Webb. Yeah, the very man who built MI6's AI was the actual architect of the conspiracy 009 had been trying to warn everyone about. Webb corners Bond at the web industry's anniversary gala, and he delivers this chilling quote, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." See, Webb wasn't just some tech pioneer. He was a ruthless visionary operating completely above the law. He genuinely believed his immense intellect gave him the absolute right to reshape the country by any means necessary. To truly understand the sheer scale of the threat here, we have to break down Webb's master plan. It was a rapid, four-step coup d'etat. Step 1, utilize Thea's predictive neural networks as a roadmap. Step 2, orchestrate a crisis that entirely cripples the current administration. Step 3, use that ensuing chaos to install the compromised Foreign Secretary Stephen Bright as the new Prime Minister. And finally, Step 4, effectively seize control of the British government right from behind the curtain. Turns out, 009 had been 100% right all along. But Webb was incredibly paranoid. He installed the ultimate failsafe, a biometric monitor tied directly to his own heart. If his heart stopped beating for any reason, every single byte of classified MI6 data would be dumped directly onto the open web, exposing every agent and asset globally. And here is the brilliant dark irony of the whole situation. Webb's own son, Damien, who was sick and tired of living in his father's shadow, actually murders Webb right in front of Bond. And by doing that, Damien instantly triggers the exact catastrophic data leak his father built to protect himself.
That throws us immediately into Section 5, halting the server wipe. The mission instantly shifted from a quiet investigation to a desperate, frantic race against the clock. Bond was completely cut off inside a massive Faraday cage within Webb Industries. To actually halt the wipe, he had to execute this incredibly tense exact procedure. Disguised in a stolen lab coat just to blend in with the panicked IT staff and guided only by remote assistance, he had to physically locate specific server clusters on the floor, specifically servers 1100, 2600, and 3200. Then he had to manually take them offline and flip a physical overwrite switch to interrupt the data transfer. And he had to do all of this while actively dodging armed security patrols that were violently sweeping the server floor.
Once the servers were finally halted, Damien Webb's only escape route was through the underground reservoir tunnels right beneath the facility. Now, Damien had been heavily enhanced with a synthetic compound, making him incredibly fast and dangerously strong. Plus, he had an entire private army guarding his retreat. So, how on earth do you escape an underground bunker guarded by an enhanced super soldier? Well, you call in the heavy artillery. Enter the Q branch Valhalla. Bond secures the master key to MI6's experimental vehicle and just unleashes its full arsenal down in those tunnels. We are talking about deploying smoke screens, laying down oil slicks, blasting a sonic cannon, and literally firing machine guns and missiles directly at Damien's heavily armed escort. Seriously, I can only imagine the sheer mountain of paperwork Q branch had to file for that one. Ultimately, Bond utilized the ejector seat, flooding the massive reservoir tunnels to wash out the remaining mercenaries and finally secure the victory. The data was safe. The coup was thwarted, and Damien Webb was defeated. But the fallout required some extreme management, which leads us to Section 6, the birth of 007. When the dust finally settled, the political reality was pretty grim. To protect their budget, prevent a massive diplomatic crisis, and maintain their global standing, MI6 made the choice to sweep the entire treason completely under the rug. Foreign Secretary Bright's involvement? Totally buried. Sir Nicholas Webb, a literal traitor to the crown, was actually given a beautiful state funeral, complete with bagpipes and a rifle salute. It is a stark, crazy reminder that in the world of intelligence, optics often matter way, way more than justice. MI6 made a calculated decision that acknowledging the truth publicly was just simply too dangerous. But despite the massive cover-up, M absolutely recognized the extraordinary lengths our operative went to. Bond was officially offered a place in the newly reinstated 00 program. But here's the fun part. When M offered him the 001 designation, Bond declined it. Instead, he chose his lucky number,
Because he was exactly the 7th recruit to enter the Malta training facility, he officially took the designation 007. But we absolutely have to end this explainer on a highly concerning note, because Bond didn't walk out of those flooded tunnels alone. Someone pulled him and Damien's body from the water. And much more importantly, while MI6 was distracted securing the servers, an unseen hand completely vanished with Thea, the world's most dangerous quantum AI. So, who is operating in the shadows? Who has the power and the reach to manipulate these massive events without leaving a single trace behind? That is the major lingering mystery our brand new 007 will undoubtedly have to solve. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this incredible story. Keep your eyes open, and we'll see you next time.
Hello Hollywood movies lovers, welcome to watch new Hollywood movies. Icebreaker 230, and this is story, and watching for and like and subscribe adventure stories and more activities adventure. Hey YouTube, this last activities and my small activities, though not mass content, this my content. Okay YouTube, thank you guys.